Welcome back to the Cognitive Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Clint Ray, high performance coach, speaker, and author of The Cognitive Athlete. Now, we are in week 5 of the cognitive training cycle. Week 1, we stabilized your pace, then we protected your energy, you designed your structure. Last week, you rebuilt focus. Now, we install the piece that determines whether any of that actually sticks. Daily structure that is aligned to your biology. Not influencer routines, not the 4 a.m. club, not even the hustle culture. Pure biology. Let's dive into it. Let me start with a picture. It's 9:30 p.m. You have been up since 6 a.m. You've handled emails, you've sat through countless meetings, you've made dozens of small decisions. Now you're on a Zoom call. Camera is on, big client, high stakes, and somebody challenges your strategy. And you react. A little sharper than you meant to, a little more defensive than usual. Later, lying in bed, you're replaying this in your mind. Why did I say that? And you start blaming yourself. You assume it was emotional control. It wasn't. It was actually your biology. So, what actually happened there? Let's pull back the curtain. Because high performers don't guess. They understand the mechanism. What you felt wasn't weakness. It was all to do with timing. Let's find out what's really going on inside your head. Your brain is not designed to operate at the same level for between 14 or 16 hours straight. 2 systems are shaping your alertness every day. The first one is your circadian rhythm. That's your internal biological clock. The second is sleep pressure. That's the chemical buildup in your brain the longer that you're awake. Sleep pressures build steadily. Adenosine accumulates and creates cognitive drag. Circadian rhythm rises and falls in a wave across those 24 hours. And together they determine how quickly you think, how steady your emotions are, how strong your memory is, how sound your decisions are. Your prefrontal cortex, that's the part responsible for judgment and strategy, doesn't run on motivation. It runs on sleep, fuel, and timing. So what does a normal day actually look like? For most adults, you wake up and cortisol rises within 30 to 45 minutes of waking, and that mobilizes energy. Late morning, often between 10 and 12, cognitive sharpness peaks, processing speed is strong, and strategic thinking is clearer. But most people, that's where they schedule their admin or catching up on emails. Then early afternoon hits, around 2 or 3 p.m, alertness dips, attention then softens, and motivation drops slightly. And you tell yourself, let's just push through it. But the dip is predictable biology. Then for most adults, especially those who aren't those extreme morning types, there's a bit of a rebound window between 3 and 6, where reaction time improves, physical strength often peaks during those times, coordination sharpens, your system oscillates. It was never meant to be flat out all day. Now let's layer the modern workday on top, where you start sharp, then meetings stack, back-to-backs, emails pile up, micro decisions then accumulate. By mid-afternoon, you're still functioning, but you're carrying all this decision fatigue. Then, at 10 p.m, you've got a global call. It lands in your calendar. It's high stakes. You're talking about strategy and really important decision making. Conflict, it's all about conflict navigation. Biologically, late evening is when your reaction time slows, impulse control weakens, emotional reactivity increases. You probably felt this. You're asking your brain to perform elite cognitive work at its weakest moment. Then you wake up all foggy and think something's wrong with you. Like I said, it's not motivation, it's just misalignment. And there's something else. I don't want to bombard you with too much, but there is another layer most people then ignore. Your brain operates in roughly 90 to 120 minute performance cycles called your ultradian rhythm. For about 70 to 90 minutes, you can sustain focused effort, but after that, error rates rise, attention then drifts, and stress builds up. Then you stack back-to-back meetings for 4 hours, and you're just compounding the strain. Short resets are very important, and they're not indulgent. Just 5 minutes in between meetings makes a massive difference. And you've got to think about it, they're maintenance just to keep you level. A 10-minute walk, some water, go to the toilet, have a little bit of food. No screens, no getting back to emails, just empty space. And that is for you to protect your decision making and cognitive performance. Now, that's the science bit all over. What does this actually mean for someone like you who is a cognitive athlete? Number one, we need to start thinking about working with our biology. We need to think about protecting your peak thinking windows. We need to place strategic work when your cognition is at its strongest. We need to reduce decision load before late calls. So doing all that thinking earlier in the day, so then when it comes to 10 p.m. it makes it really easy. We need to insert some recovery breaks in between periods of deep work or meetings, and then avoid stacking all these major decisions late on in the day. What we also need to think about is productivity isn't about hours worked. It's about the decision quality per hour. And we can actually track that as a KPI metric. Now, how do I put this into work practically for me? I know, and you know, we all know 3 to 5 p.m. for me is when I am on fire. That's when my thinking feels clean, my delivery just flows, and that's when I feel naturally, my energy feels high. Now, here's the important bit. If I've got a full day workshop and it's starting early, then what I do, I train at 5 a.m. And it's not because I'm trying to win discipline or anything like that. It's because I understand all of this physiology. For me, morning exercise elevates my dopamine and my adrenaline. It sharpens my executive function and it regulates my cortisol. What it actually does, it's priming my nervous system. So when I step into the room at 8:30 for my workshop, I'm not relying on caffeine or willpower. It's deliberate. I've elevated my state on purpose. Then when 3 o'clock hits, my natural alert window, I'm actually building on that momentum, so I'm not falling asleep. That's not about toughness. That's just around how I use this in my day, which really is all about alignment, and you could do exactly the same. Now, we've talked about a lot of different things today. I'm all about action, so let's put this into a couple of practical action steps. We've got 3 action steps this week. The first one is for you to identify your real peak window. When are your conversations easier? When does your writing just flow? When do you solve problems without the grind? Protecting that 60 to 90 minute window is going to be essential. No reactive tasks. This is when you are at your peak concentration level. Number 2, plan around any late demands that you have. So if you've got a late call, for example, then we need to draft your thinking early. So you need to write your notes, get it all out of your head, ready for later on. Outline decisions while you're mentally fresh. Insert a 15 to 20 minute reset period, sort of mid-afternoon, whether it's 3, 4 o'clock, and avoid heavy cognitive strain late in the day if possible. Don't enter high stakes decisions when you're depleted. And finally, number 3, we need to close the day out deliberately. So before you go to bed, you need to ask yourself, what's done, what's completed, tick off the list. What matters tomorrow and what can wait? When the system feels stable, the brain sleeps better, and a rested brain performs much better than a tired brain. Now, there is an important nuance with this. Not everyone is wired the same. Some lean into mornings, some people lean into evenings. Most people sit within the middle part of the day. And this isn't about copying my routine or someone else's. It's about you. It's about understanding your rhythms. And that is your personal leadership. Boom. Week 5 done. Align structure with your biology. Next week, we are going to increase capacity, Not by grinding harder, but by training your cognitive system progressively and safely. If this episode resonated with you, hit follow or subscribe and share it with someone that's running on caffeine and willpower. It generally helps boost this podcast up to make it more visible for those people that need it. The Cognitive Athlete book is out now in all bookshops and online. And remember, working longer isn't working smarter. Working with your rhythms is working smarter. I'll see you next time.